3 years after our divorce, I met Shen Yuqing again in Jiangnan. He wore a jade crown and brocade robes, riding a fine steed as he accompanied his wife on a spring outing. I wore a simple headband and a coarse skirt, carrying a tattered basket as I hawked apricot blossoms by the roadside. Shen Yuqing's face was pale, his eyes seeming to hold 1,000 unspoken words. "Anyang, you've suffered." I lowered my head in embarrassment. Shortly after our divorce, I remarried. Now I am the empress of the current dynasty, accompanying His Majesty on an incognito inspection. Where did the suffering come from? Shen Yuqing bought all my flowers. He casually handed over 10 taels of gold, yet took only the most vibrant red apricot blossom. The palace maid Sueyu stood beside me, watching with astonishment. The wealthy of Jiangnan truly are extraordinary, their spending is beyond compare. Not just this basket of apricot blossoms, even an entire apricot orchard could be bought with 10 taels of gold. I tucked away the gold ingot, smiling as I shook my head. He's no scion of a Jiangnan aristocratic family, just a poor scholar. 3 years ago, he passed the imperial examination and became a magistrate here, earning 200 taels of silver annually. Sueyu's eyes filled with confusion, then where did he get all that money? Watching Shen's carriage roll away, I replied softly, because he made an excellent marriage. A marriage so well arranged that even if they had to sacrifice me, his wife of many years, they would still make it happen. As the imperial boat stopped on the river for our return, I brought Shuiqing some snacks. A packet of braised tofu, a few skewers of fried dumplings. All the flavors of home I once loved. Shen Yuqing's gold was utterly useless here, common vendors wouldn't accept it, and it couldn't be broken into smaller pieces. Instead, it attracted a crowd of ruffians. It drew a crowd of ruffians. They trailed behind us, neither too close nor too far. I sighed and gave a slight nod to the scattered shadow guards. They took their leave at my signal, and wisps of rain began to fall. Sueyu held up an oil paper umbrella for me. The winding path led to a faint outline of a boat at its end. She was a tight-lipped girl, yet curiosity got the better of her. She glanced behind us, then stole a look at me. I slowed my pace deliberately and smiled. Curious? Very well. I'll tell you the whole story. Shen Yuqing and I grew up together in the same alley, childhood sweethearts. His parents died unexpectedly, leaving him unattended. When he collapsed from hunger at our doorstep, he still clutched half a scroll of writing. Our family was poor too. My father tightened his belt to the bone, hauling goods for merchants by the river. My mother pulled the family silver bracelet from under the bed and pawned it for good. Only then could we scrape together enough rice to feed Shen Yuqing. Keeping him alive was no easy feat, let alone affording his continued education, that was pure fantasy. One night, I woke parched and went to the stove to fetch water. I saw Shen Yuqing biting his lip, silently stuffing books into the furnace. Startled, I rushed to save him. My hand was seared by the flames, leaving a scar that still twists like a worm when exposed. The elder sister at the embroidery workshop shook her head at my hand, saying I couldn't handle the delicate work here. I ran around her like a puppy wagging its tail, begging for favor, until she finally relented and took me as an apprentice. To pay Shen Yuqing's tuition, I embroidered day and night without rest. On the day Shen Yuqing returned to school, he knelt at our doorstep and kowtowed 3 times. The Song family has bestowed upon me a kindness beyond measure. I have no way to repay it. If Aner will not reject me, I would be honored to marry her in the future. He was renowned throughout the surrounding villages as a promising scholar. He possessed a refined and handsome appearance, his demeanor courteous and dignified. Upon hearing this, everyone declared I was blessed, saying my family had struck gold. But at the time, I was deeply troubled. Our family supported Shen Yuqing, hoping for his success. We weren't expecting him to marry me. The storybook said that to become husband and wife, one must first be moved by love. I was too young, even slightly complicated scenes made my eyes go blurry. What was this being moved by love? At my coming-of-age ceremony, Shen Yuqing blushed as he presented me with a pair of butterfly hairpins. The money for the pins came from him copying books for classmates day and night. In our alley, girls at their coming-of-age ceremonies were lucky to get 2 bamboo chopsticks. Who had ever seen such beautiful jewelry? The butterfly wings fluttered, and my heart fluttered too. For the first time in my life, I fell in love. That year, famine struck Jiangnan, followed by a great plague. The southern prince who ruled this land refused to open the granaries or distribute medicine. In his official reports, Jiangnan remained a land of outstanding talents and spiritual vitality, where songs and dances flourished in peace. Rice and medicinal herbs became more valuable than gold overnight. I knew nothing of these things. I only knew Mother secretly poured her rice gruel back into the pot to save it for us. She starved to death. Father toiled day and night at the docks, earning meager wages as a laborer. He died of illness. Shen Yuqing was also feverish and delirious, vomiting and suffering from diarrhea, speaking nonsense. I feared both his death and my own survival. If he died, I'd have no family left in this world. If I survived, how could I reunite with my parents and Shen Yuqing? Shen Yuqing's scorching fingers trembled as they lifted halfway. He wiped away my burning tears. Anyang, don't cry. I won't die. I will survive to marry you and protect you for the rest of my life. I will also pass the imperial examinations and present myself before His Majesty in the capital. I'll ask him to slay the southern prince and restore justice to the people of Jiangnan. I was so frightened I wanted to cover his mouth. But I only had 2 hands, I still needed to wipe his body and feed him water. So I gave up covering his mouth and just hurried to tend to him. After all, Shen Yuqing could never be wrong. Everyone said he was the brightest, the most diligent, destined to be the top scholar and become chancellor. Whatever he set his mind to, nothing was beyond his reach. After the plague passed, Shen Yuqing pulled out a bolt of white cloth and a length of red silk. The white cloth was for my parents' funeral rites, the red silk became my bridal veil. My hands, accustomed to handling brocades and silks in the embroidery workshop, still found this veil the most beautifully embroidered, the finest in material. Shen Yuqing, however, was filled with shame. He couldn't observe mourning for my parents, for doing so would bar him from the imperial examinations. He scraped together every last coin he possessed, yet couldn't afford a single wedding gown. The only thing he could do was marry me. So that my parents, watching from the underworld, would see us together and find peace in reincarnation. On our wedding night, Shen Yuqing held me tightly in his arms as he tied our hair together. Tears fell onto my face, icy cold, not warm at all. Choking back sobs, he swore, Anyang, I will earn you an imperial decree, so you may wear the phoenix crown and ceremonial robes. I felt faint again. I had already secretly vowed my life to a pair of butterfly hairpins. How beautiful that phoenix crown and wedding robe must be. My embroidery skills grew ever more refined, surpassing even the sister who taught me. Young brides from wealthy Jiangnan households sought me out to embroider their pouches, handkerchiefs, bridal veils, and wedding gowns. Slowly, everything seemed to be improving. Our family could afford braised tofu and fried glutinous rice balls. We could even buy Shen Yuqing some respectable clothes to wear when visiting his master. During the Lantern Festival, we had the luxury of holding hands while releasing river lanterns. He wished me lasting happiness, while I hoped for his success in the imperial examinations. Shen Yuqing smiled and tickled my nose. Why waste a wish on something so certain? The renowned scholars he consulted all praised his exceptional talent, calling him prime material for the top rank. Even if others were more gifted, passing the imperial examination was assured. Yet that spring, Shen Yuqing failed. The second year, the third, the fourth, the fifth. He failed again and again. After the first failure, countless people came to console Shen Yuqing. They said perhaps there was some error with the exam papers, or perhaps this year's chief examiner was too rigid. In any case, failing was certainly not Shen Yuqing's fault. By the second year, fewer people said such things. By the third year, whispers began. Shen Yuqing's reputation far outstripped his actual abilities. They said he wasted his natural talent, that his early brilliance promised little for adulthood. I didn't understand. By the fourth year, even the merchants at the city gates knew of a scholar named Shen who boasted grandly yet proved as dull as a pig. I understood. Shen Yuqing had initially held onto his pride, but by the fourth year, his inkstone had dried, and his books were gathering dust. Most of the money I earned as an embroiderer was squandered by him at the Spring Breeze Pavilion and along the Qinhuai River, listening to the sweet whispers of the top courtesans, drowning his sorrows in their arms. Those hands that once penned the essays of a top scholar now only wrote lyrics for their songs. The madam, accustomed to seeing wives come looking for their husbands, refused to tell me where he was. I had no choice but to knock on door after door, asking. I endured mockery, scornful glances, angry curses, and lewd advances. All I could do was grit my teeth and bear it. I grabbed Shen Yuqing by the collar and dragged him out of the red light district. I slapped him twice, clearing his drunken haze. I wiped his face clean, reminding him of his ambitions. I cared nothing for imperial decrees or phoenix crowns and robes. But wasn't Shen Yuqing supposed to go to the capital, become an official, and seek justice from the southern prince for his father, his mother, and all the people of Jiangnan who had died? Shen Yuqing wept like a stray dog for half the night. That year, he hung his head from the beam, pricked his thigh with an awl, broke countless pens, and wore through countless inkstones. His essays circulated through the academy and across the city. Every reader sighed in regret, clapped their hands in admiration. All agreed he was merely unlucky, a brilliant talent envied by the heavens. Yet ask Shen Yuqing, ask anyone, why he failed the imperial examinations, why his name never graced the golden list. No one could say. It wasn't until his fifth failure that an opulent carriage arrived, summoning Shen Yuqing to the southern prince's mansion. He did not return home that night. When he finally came back, he seemed restless and haunted. I tried to ask him, but he only shook his head. Motherin, you wouldn't understand. Press him further, and his eyes would redden with fury. He'd storm out, slamming the door behind him. Strangely enough, that year he didn't touch a single book or brush. Yet in the sixth year, Shen Yuqing's name appeared on the golden list. He didn't seek a post in the capital, nor did he petition the emperor to denounce the Prince of Nan. Instead, he returned to Jiangnan to serve as magistrate in his hometown. My heart felt hollow, as if something precious had been lost, someone dear had vanished. Yet well-wishers trampled my threshold, all envying my sweet reward after bitter toil, my perseverance rewarded at last. Henceforth, I would be a proper magistrate's wife, no longer wasting my life and youth in the embroidery workshop. My lack of shared joy seemed odd to others. Rarity breeds value. The wives of Jiangnan's wealthy families fought tooth and nail to secure my final bridal gown. When I returned to the embroidery workshop that day, every customer had vanished. Only the steward from the southern prince's mansion stood at the door, his demeanor haughty. You are Song On Yang? He looked down his nose at me, bringing over the fabric to examine. His gaze fell on the old scar on my hand, and he frowned deeply, speaking with obvious impatience. Our mansion's Princess Jiangnan is to be wed in a month. They all say you are the finest embroiderer in the south. Cease all other work. You must complete our princess's wedding gown immediately. I protested, a month is too short. Might we know who the princess is betrothed to? Perhaps we could extend the deadline? The steward's eyes widened. You don't know? It's the newly appointed magistrate of this district, Magistrate Shen Yuqing. I don't recall how I made it home. Only that when I came to, 3 days had passed. Shen Yuqing held me as if I were a corpse, a snowman. He kept trying to warm my hands, whispering frantically in my ear. Nyang, look at me. Say something to me. I can't do it. Truly, I can't. He said the Prince of Nan had long known Shen Yuqing blamed himself for the famine and plague in Jiangnan. The Prince of Nan didn't treat it as a major threat, he found it utterly laughable. What kind of storm could a powerless, penniless scholar possibly stir up? All he needed to do was give the chief examiner a nod, drop a few hints. Making someone pass the imperial examinations was difficult, but ensuring their failure was easy. Barring any surprises, Shen Yuqing would have failed the exams until he was 50 or 60. Discouraged and disheartened, he would have become nothing more than a laughingstock in others' eyes. But then, Princess Jiangnan of the Southern Prince's mansion happened to meet Shen Yuqing during a spring outing. That day, my husband and I were actually traveling together. While I sought a protective amulet for Shen Yuqing, he went into the mountains to pluck a branch of apricot blossoms for me. Apricot blossoms are my favorite. Princess Jiangnan saw him that day and lost her heart forever. The Prince of Nan had no choice but to grit his teeth and summon Shen Yuqing to the mansion. He promised Shen Yuqing that if he married Princess Jiangnan, he would ensure Shen Yuqing passed the imperial examinations. If Shen Yuqing kept his mouth shut before the emperor, he would secure Shen Yuqing a position as a magistrate in Jiangnan. Shen Yuqing agreed to everything. A full year ago, he already knew he would pass the exams, become an official, and marry Princess Jiangnan. Only I remained in the dark. I didn't cry, nor did I make a scene. Pointing at the tombstones of my parents in the courtyard, I stared blankly at Shen Yuqing and asked, "Didn't you say you'd report to His Majesty? That you'd seek justice for father and mother, for the people of Jiangnan?" Shen Yuqing avoided my gaze, his voice barely above a whisper, "Death extinguishes the lamp. They would understand the living's predicament." I pointed at myself and pressed him further, "Princess Jiangnan intends to marry you, but you already have a wife. You promised to wed her, what about me?" Shen Yuqing instead seemed relieved, even pleased. "The princess is exceptionally magnanimous and virtuous. She's willing to let you, and Young, be her noble concubine. You'll share one husband with her, well provided for within the mansion. The Southern Prince's mansion is supremely wealthy. Though you'd only be a concubine, and young, you'd live a life as splendid as a princess." Finally, I pointed at him, my voice breaking with sorrow. "But what about you? Shen Yuqing, what about your dreams? Your ambitions? Everything you've strived for 3 years of grueling study? If you're willing to abandon all that, then you could also abandon the imperial examinations. We could leave Jiangnan and live our own lives, like our parents did. I don't need a phoenix crown or a wedding gown. I don't need the wealth of a prince's mansion. All I want is to be with you. That's enough. Is that not what you desire too?" Shen Yuqing seemed stabbed by a sudden dagger. His pupils shrank sharply. In his shock and fury, he flung me to the floor. Starved and exhausted, the pain left me unable to rise. My hand hung in the air for ages, yet no one reached to pull me up. Shen Yuqing paced the room in near frenzy. He hissed, "But I refuse to live like your parents. From tomorrow's rice to life and death itself, everything hangs on the whims of the nobility. Everyone can come gawk at my misery, point their fingers, and call me a laughingstock. And young, that's no way for a human to live. Living like that is worse than being a dog in the Southern Prince's mansion. I'd rather grovel like a dog before the Southern Prince, fawning over him and the princess, than live another day like you, like your parents. Success is within my grasp. I'll become the prince's son-in-law, a local magistrate. Song on Young, don't even dream of dragging me back to that alley. Never!" He stormed off, flinging his sleeves behind him. I'd fallen too hard, unable to rise for a long while. Finally, I curled into a ball against the cold ground. Slowly, tears began to fall. This was the last time I wept for Shen Yuqing. Shen Yuqing no longer wished to see me, nor hear my words. Several sturdy maidservants hoisted me up and dragged me into the brand-new Shen residence. Princess Jiangnan sat at the head of the table, her childlike face adorned with a gentle smile. Yet she spoke, "I hear my elder sister is unwell. This younger sister is truly worried sick. The auspicious day of the grand wedding is upon us. If you cannot finish embroidering my bridal gown, sister, would that not be deliberately bringing misfortune upon my husband and my father, the king? We have always lived in harmony as husband and wife. You would never treat me this way, would you, sister? I was locked away in the woodshed at the rear courtyard, guarded by a lowly servant woman. I embroidered the bridal gown day and night without rest. Whatever leftovers the old woman ate became my meal. I was forbidden to stop working or to sleep. The slightest sign of drowsiness brought the old woman grabbing my hair and stabbing my thigh with a large sewing needle. Then she'd pour several basins of ice-cold water over me, chilling me to the bone until my teeth chattered. Princess Jiangnan came to inspect me personally, clapping her hands in admiration. I hear your husband hung himself from the rafters and pricked his thigh with needles to pass the imperial examinations. A husband is his wife's guiding principle. My sister and I should certainly take your husband as our model. Late into the night, a high fever seized me. The old woman refused to fetch medicine, forcing only cold water down my throat. She claimed the princess had instructed her, a wretch like me had the toughest constitution. I'd survived the Great Plague without medicine, this mere cold was nothing. Giving me cold water was already leniency. Struggling between life and death, I finally regained consciousness. The woodshed stood in a corner of the garden. One day, I overheard Shen Yuqing speaking with the princess. May I ask, Your Highness, where is Jiangnan now? I bought her the fried dumpling she loves, but I can't find her anywhere. Princess Jiangnan sweetly replied, My lord, there is no princess here. Since she is in the Shen residence, Jiangnan is merely your wife. Serving you is only natural. As for my elder sister, she is unwell and resting quietly in the manor. My lord and I are soon to be wed. It would be unwise to catch her illness. These fried dumplings are truly crude. My sister now enjoys refined cuisine, she'd likely look down on them anyway. Shen Yuqing, flattered by her praise, tossed the dumplings into the pond with a splash to feed the fish. I rushed to the door of the woodshed and cried out for help, my heart torn apart, Shen Yuqing. Shen Yuqing! Help me! Save me, I'm right here. His footsteps halted. Soon after, I heard him say, I entrust all matters concerning Lady into you, Jiangnan. Staggering backward in a daze, the world finally spun violently before my eyes. A sudden, crushing pain shot through my lower abdomen as warm blood gushed out. Before losing consciousness, I heard several maids in a flustered commotion. She miscarried! Quickly lift the princess's wedding gown, don't soil it. Oh dear, what terrible luck! That wedding gown had finally been embroidered. Princess Jiangnan adored it so much she had me dragged to her chambers to try it on. Every stitch and thread shimmered brilliantly under the lamp, shifting in myriad patterns. It was with this very craftsmanship that I had sustained Shen Yuqing all these years. Princess Jiangnan asked, with such skill, what reward would you desire? I struggled to kneel properly and bowed my head to her with utmost reverence. And Jiang knows her lowly station. I begged the princess to grant me permission to divorce my husband. That day in the woodshed, I clearly heard the murderous intent in the princess's words. From that day onward, nothing and no one in the Shen household held any lingering attachment for me. Once, I guarded Shen Yuqing, fearing I might die a moment before him. Now, I must leave him, leave this place. I must live. Princess Jiangnan was pleased with my compliance. With a wave of her hand, attendants brought forth the divorce papers, signed and sealed by Shen Yuqing himself. My husband and you truly share a telepathic bond. He later confessed to me that no matter how long we were wed, you remained merely a lowly embroidery maid. Sharing a husband with me? He feared it would be an injustice to me. Tomorrow is my wedding to my husband. Will you stay, sister, and drink a cup of celebratory wine before departing? I signed and sealed the papers swiftly, shaking my head. Anton will no longer be here to trouble you and Lord Shen. May you and Lord Shen be forever united in heart and enjoy 100 years of blissful harmony. Princess Jiangnan grew even more delighted, sending me 50 taels for my journey and an exquisite brocade box. I opened the box to look inside. It was the child I had lost that day. I thought, since you shared a mother-child bond with it, you should take it with you. The princess peered in curiously, then clicked her tongue, ugly. My child with my husband will be 100 times prettier than this. Do you think it's a little lord or a little lady? I calmly closed the lid, though my usually steady hands trembled uncontrollably. Since no one awaited its birth, what difference does it make whether it's a boy or a girl? Princess Jiangnan laughed like a silver bell and finally relented, letting me go. It was now deep into the night. The mansion was ablaze with lanterns and decorations, bustling with activity as if it were daytime. Under the matron's watchful eye, I staggered to the side gate of the Shen residence. Suddenly halting, I said, "Forgive me, I forgot to retrieve something. It's the butterfly hairpin Lord Shen made for me on my coming-of-age day." The matron raised her eyebrows, about to refuse. But someone interceded, "Let her retrieve it. It's better this way. Otherwise, the young master might see it and be reminded of her, upsetting the princess." The matron tried to follow me to find it, but the steward snapped impatiently, "We're all running ourselves ragged here. Stop shirking your duties and get to work. That embroiderer's been worked to death by you lot, what trouble could she possibly stir up now? Let her go alone. Once she gets her thing, she'd better clear out fast. No bringing bad luck on the princess's wedding day." So I walked alone to the main courtyard. The butterfly hairpin was indeed carefully stored here by Shen Yuqing. After finding them, I didn't take them away. Instead, I placed the brocade box inside as well. The bridal chamber was in the main courtyard, already fully prepared. All hands were sent to the front courtyard to oversee the banquet. My movements were slow, but meticulous. I poured lamp oil all over the wedding bed. Then I took out the veil I had personally embroidered for my wedding to Shen Yuqing, set it ablaze, I tossed it onto the wedding bed. As I left the Shen residence, flames roared behind me, illuminating half the city. Everywhere, people rushed about, shouting to extinguish the fire. Others, furious and frantic, yelled demands to arrest someone for blame. I walked too slowly, I should have been caught. But a carriage had stopped beside the Shen residence, its occupants watching the spectacle with unabashed curiosity. The curtain lifted, revealing a young gentleman in lavish attire. He grinned nonchalantly, "I came to celebrate Jiangnan's wedding." Who started this fire? Did she make enemies? Or did Prince Nan provoke someone, causing her suffering? Young lady, could it be? You're the one they're after? I considered it, then answered plainly, "It was me." Truth be told, I have grievances with every one of them. Will you arrest me? Or set me free? He leaned closer, yanking me into the carriage. I intend to help you escape. I am Shuiqing, Shui of the imperial clan, Qing as in clear flowing water. What is your name? So that was it. He was Prince Nan, not a common noble but a royal prince. Gazing at the flickering flames outside the carriage, I replied calmly, "My father's surname is Song, and my mother's as in peace and prosperity. My name is Song On Young." When we returned to the imperial barge, Sueyu's eyes were swollen like the golden dragon-eyed fish in the palace pond. Shuiqing had just returned as well, changing out of his white robes and back into his imperial attire. Spotting me and Sueyu, he chuckled curiously, "What's this? Someone dared bully our Sueyu? Anyang, did you encounter any relatives or old friends during your homecoming?" Sueyu puffed out her cheeks, ready to tattle. But her lips were sealed tight, words reached her mouth only to be swallowed back. I, however, had no intention of hiding anything. I sat down leisurely beside Shuiqing and pulled out 10 taels of gold ingots. I met the husband I married before. He pitied me for suffering alongside your majesty, so he specially sent me 10 taels of gold to rescue me from the sea of hardship. Shui Chang's smile vanished instantly. His gaze grew colder by the second as he slowly traced the Southern Prince's seal engraved on the ingot's base. His voice dripped with bitterness and resentment. "Ah, it's all because I'm useless. That the Empress must resort to selling flowers on the street, begging for pity from an old acquaintance, just to scrape a few coins out of the Southern Prince's household." "Gold ingots," I deliberately reminded him. "A gold ingot weighing 10 taels. Shui Qing nearly gasped for breath. In the years before the late emperor's demise, he had pursued immortals and the elixir of life. The reins around the Southern Prince's neck had never been so slack. By the time Shui Qing ascended the throne, his foundation was unstable, and he had no one to rely on. He urgently needed to address the state treasury's dire emptiness. The Jiangnan region was rich and prosperous. Even when he was a prince, he had coveted his uncle, the Prince of Nan. The Prince of Nan persistently played the victim, crying poverty. The local magistrate, Shen Yuqing, collected taxes at a rate of less than 1/10. Despite so much wealth remaining in Jiangnan, people still starved to death in the city every day. Shui Qing feigned illness, claiming he needed to recuperate at a mountain temple outside the capital, conveniently paying homage to the late emperor along the way. In secret, an imperial vessel set sail straight for the south. While the Prince of Nan lamented poverty to the court, a steady stream of gold and silver flowed from his estate. Every last coin went to grain merchants and private railways. He was an old wolf lurking in the lap of luxury, watching Shui Qing, watching every emperor. Ever ready to tear off their flesh and drag them from the dragon throne. Before Shui Qing arrived in Jiangnan, he had already begun slowly redeploying nearby garrison troops. But troop movements required time. And after decades of cultivating his reputation, the local magistrate Shen Yuqing likely saw only the Prince of Nan as his patron. The slightest misstep could alert the snake. Shui Chang's foundation would be shaken, and the Jiangnan region would be plunged into war, claiming countless innocent lives. Even once the garrison was assembled, Shui Qing still lacked conclusive evidence to crush them all convincingly. Perhaps the ledgers. Perhaps the dragon robe. Perhaps the silent blood and tears shed under the Southern Prince's oppressive rule. He lacked a Shen Yuqing, one whose spirit remained unbroken, whose eyes still shone with clarity. He had arrived too late. But it didn't matter. He still had me. I pushed away the 9 phoenix hairpin from Shuiyu's grasp. Still wearing a simple headdress and plain skirt, my face bare, I turned once before Shui Qing. I smiled and said, "Your Majesty, look at Anyang now. Does she seem fit to be a noble concubine in Lord Shen's household?" Shui Qing snapped the teacup he just picked up in half. His eyes were icy, his words dark. Leaning his forehead against his hand, he declared matter-of-factly, "A nurse Grace surpasses her former self." "That Shen Yuqing? He's not even worthy of lifting your skirt. In this world, the only one worthy of lifting your skirts is this emperor." My heart understood. Just as I was about to leave, Shui Qing seized my wrist tightly. It was just like 3 years ago, when he had yanked me into the carriage. He spoke, each word deliberate, "Madam, your thirst for vengeance is strong, but do not forget to look back at this emperor. I will wait here forever. Forever. It will never change." The next day, I returned to the street corner to sell apricot blossoms. This time, I left Suiyu behind. When Shen Yuqing reappeared, Princess Yan was not by his side. He still seemed hesitant to speak, his heart aching for me. I pretended to stumble, feigning an old injury, and fell forward before him. Shen Yuqing rushed to catch me, but the momentum carried me into his embrace. I forced a smile. Has Lord Shen come to buy flowers for his wife again? Did the lady like yesterday's red apricot branch? Shen Yuqing seemed to have made a resolution, speaking with unwavering resolve. "It has nothing to do with Yan Ning. It's me. I like apricot blossoms. And young wood. Would you be willing to return to the mansion with me?" Overwhelmed with joy, I pinched my thigh hard. When I looked up, tears welled in my eyes. Of course I would. Princess Jiangnan had turned half of the Shen residence upside down. But Shen Yuqing was no longer the penniless scholar who once hung on her every word. Compared to his doting, spoiled daughter, the southern prince now valued his son-in-law, a man wielding real power, far more. Amidst the scattered jewels and broken porcelain, Jiangnan gasped for breath, surrounded by maids and matrons offering comfort. "Madam, you are of noble birth. What is Song On Young but a lowly beggar? How dare she challenge you? She was once your husband's first wife, yet you could still mold her as you pleased. Now she's merely a beggar flower girl on the street. You needn't even lift a finger, we'll handle her for you." Jiangnan considered this and ordered her belongings packed. She sat upright, waiting for me to pay my respects to the mistress of the house. This wait stretched from sunrise to sunset, from dusk to dawn. The next day, Shen Yuqing finally sent a servant to the back courtyard with a message. "My husband says Madame Song need not enter the inner quarters. She may reside in the front courtyard. He asks you to be generous and virtuous, managing his affairs well. The master intends to reconcile with Madame Song and take her as a co-wife." Jiangnan was furious. She smashed things again, then led her people, storming toward the front courtyard. Passing the estate's garden, she heard a clamor of voices. The Shen residence had been consumed by a great fire I set, rebuilt at great expense. Every blade of grass, every tree, every brick and tile embodied Princess Jianning's heart and soul. Yet half the laborers were tearing down the woodshed in one corner of the garden, while the other half of the gardeners were hacking down every magnolia tree in the entire garden. Princess Jianning's lifelong passion for magnolias was known to all in Jiangnan. She had spent half her life collecting these prized trees and rare varieties. Now they were all being chopped down, stacked aside as firewood, to be replaced by apricot trees she deemed utterly worthless. When Princess Jiangnan burst into Shen Yuqing's study, he was holding my hand, slowly composing a love poem. Yet after 3 years in the imperial palace, my demeanor had transformed completely. Shen Yuqing and I didn't resemble intimate lovers, but rather a palace consort and a young eunuch tending to brush and ink. Princess Jiangnan froze, then snapped back to reality. She pulled a charred corner of a wedding veil from her sleeve. She flung it at Shen Yuqing's feet, shouting, "Husband! That vile woman Song On Young, a few fake tears, and you're already head over heels, treating her like a precious treasure again? Jiangnan is your wife. 3 years ago, she set fire to our home, ruining our wedding day. Why didn't you ask about Jianning's suffering and grievances then?" Shen Yuqing's pupils suddenly contracted as he recognized the charred remains on the ground as the embroidered veil from our wedding. I immediately threw myself to the floor, carefully cradling it, and stammered, "Back then, the princess nearly took half of Anyang's life. Never mind setting fire, Anyang barely made it out of the mansion alive. While resting by the roadside, she overheard maids complaining that your wedding was rushed, your stewards too harsh. They even suggested setting the courtyard ablaze to postpone the ceremony, just so everyone could breathe easier. Anyang only sought to save herself then, dared not speak further, and left. And now, princess, to frame me, you won't even spare Anyang the small comfort? Or my husband?" Closing my eyes, tears streamed down my face. Shen Yuqing now couldn't bear to see me cry. I was the butterfly he'd lost and found again, the tender dream of old he relived in his waking hours. As the tears fell, even the naive little embroidery maid who once only looked up to him without understanding anything came alive again. His hair stood on end with rage, refusing to listen to Jianning's pleas. Just like back then, pretending not to hear my cries for help from the woodshed. He immediately ordered his men to bind the maidservant under Jianning's command, gagged her, and made me identify each one. Whoever I name gets 50 lashes and sold on the spot. I clutched his sleeve, trembling for a long while, yet my fingers moved with surprising dexterity. Pointing to a few figures in the distance, I identified those who had tormented me back then. "My lord, look!" I pleaded pitifully. "It's them. Yan Ning lost several capable servants and was grounded by Shen Yuqing. Undeterred, she repeatedly sent messages to the southern prince's mansion, begging her father to intervene on her behalf. As his only beloved daughter, the southern prince would grant her every wish. Even if he didn't want to touch Shen Yuqing, disposing of me wouldn't be difficult. I watched coldly as my secret guards gagged and removed all her messengers. A man like the Prince of Nan had delayed rebellion only because he lacked a son. He depended on his daughter and son-in-law to produce an heir. But what if I gave him a son? Yan Ning's letters went unanswered. Finally unable to endure, she seized the day I had chosen, stormed out of the mansion, and sought her father's justice. I signaled Shen Yuqing's men to ease their grip, letting her depart unhindered. Secret guards concealed in Princess Yan Ning's carriage drove straight into the southern prince's residence. Beside the southern prince stood a young man bearing a striking resemblance to him. Dressed plainly, his back slightly hunched, he seemed unaccustomed to the opulence of the princely court. This was the illegitimate son her father had publicly acknowledged on the very day Yan Ning was confined. Yan Ning, overcome with disbelief, wailed and raged throughout the southern prince's residence, "Father! You said mother was your true love in this life, that I was your precious jewel. Everything in this mansion, even that throne, was meant for my child. Words spoken by your own mouth, do they mean nothing now?" The southern prince didn't spare her a glance, his gaze fixed contentedly on his son. "Yan Ning, you are still a daughter. The child you bear will bear the Shen name, not the Shui. Besides, after 3 years of marriage, you haven't produced a single heir. As for true love and jewel of my life, those were empty words meant to be forgotten. Didn't you drive away that song and woman yourself, only to end up with Shen Yuqing? You're no longer a child. I cannot indulge you forever." Hate and venom filled Yan Ning's eyes as she lashed out, slapping the illegitimate son hard across the face. "Where did this bastard come from? Get out of my house this instant." The southern prince paled in shock, snapping his hand back without a second thought. "Yan Ning! I've truly spoiled you rotten, how dare you speak to your elder brother so insolently? This is his home now. The Shen residence is yours." The young man turned his face, revealing the faint imprint of a hand, and humbly urged the Prince of Nan, "Your Highness, the princess is of noble birth. I am but a commoner. If you must strike, strike me. Your health is more important. There's no need to anger yourself over me." The Prince of Nan grew increasingly pleased with him, his only dissatisfaction being the boy's rustic demeanor. "You are indeed dutiful. But you are no commoner, you are the future master of this royal household. You should address me as father. Your sister has offended you, you must strike her back with your own hand." The young man remained as deferential and cautious as ever, seeming deeply conflicted as he smiled awkwardly at Princess Yan Ning. Rolling up his sleeves, he declared clearly, "Then, sister, by father's command, I must now offend you." Looking around, Princess Yan Ning realized Shen Yuqing was the only person left she could rely on. She shed her usual arrogant demeanor, clouded by rage. With gentle care and graciousness, she began arranging the wedding between me and Shen Yuqing. Shen Yuqing, cherished by her, recalled her kindness. Turning to me, she took my hand and offered comfort. "From now on, you two shall be like the legendary sisters of Huang and Nuying, harmonizing like Qin and Si, a true blessing in life." I responded softly, but when alone, I scrubbed my hands frantically. A leopard never changes its spots. The debts I seek to collect are far from settled. I took the husband Yan Ning truly cherished, and I took away her pride and joy. Now, she still owes me a child and a body covered in scars. Soon, whispers began reaching Yan Ning, suggesting that the illegitimate child had lowly bloodlines, his mother merely a fallen courtesan from the Spring Breeze Pavilion. The southern prince seemed fond of him, yet he didn't trust him and kept him away from matters of real importance. If Yan Ning could deliver a legitimate heir of noble blood first, wouldn't both Shen Yuqing's heart and the southern prince's power be as easy to seize as plucking fruit from a basket? Yan Ning's maidservants scoured the land, finding a renowned folk healer. Countless noble women in the capital owed their children and their rise to the pinnacle of their households to her. Beaming with congratulations, she exclaimed, "Congratulations, my lord. Heartfelt congratulations. The lady is with child." Every physician who examined her agreed, her pulse is exceptionally strong this time. "It's twin boys." Shen Yuqing's face instinctively lit up with joy. But mindful of me, he found himself torn. Yan Ning, however, paid little heed to this tension. Looking down at me from above, she maintained her gentle tone, "Sister, I wonder if your needlework skills have grown rusty? My child is also your husband's child. Naturally, he must call you mother too. Surely you won't begrudge that? The items needed for the infants, if we start working on them now, embroidering for 10 months should just about suffice." Shen Yuqing followed her lead, turning to persuade me. "Anyang, your embroidery is the finest. Without you, where would I be today? Just lift your hands and share some of my blessings with my child." I burned the midnight oil in the embroidery workshop, wearing away years of my youth. With a flick of his tongue, he turned it into his own fortune. The bastard. My heart remained still as a pond, yet my face wore a bitter smile as I raised my slightly trembling hands. "My lord, madam, it is not that I refuse. If my skills still held, how could I have fallen to selling flowers by the roadside? When I rushed to finish your wedding gown, you were impatient and urged me on too harshly. After losing my child, my hands are no longer steady. But skilled embroiderers abound in Jiangnan. If the mistress is still anxious, hire 10 or 20 embroiderers to work together. They'll surely finish before the young master is born." Shen Yuqing had been smiling. But as he listened, his eyes widened, and his words came out in stutters. "What? What child? Anyang, did we ever have a child?" I knew it, such an unlucky matter as a miscarriage, with Yan Ning's wedding imminent, wouldn't even be mentioned to Shen Yuqing. They'd likely have to seal the lips of everyone present, forbidding anyone from revealing it to Shen Yuqing. Shen Yuqing was drenched in cold sweat, unable to stand steady. Yan Ning panicked, reaching to support him, only to be violently pushed away. Still uneasy, I asked, "Did the lady not tell the master?" That day, the lady handed me the unformed child and told me to take it away. "Master, please don't be angry. The lady is with child again. You'll soon have another child. N's child wasn't worth much. Gone is gone." Shen Yuqing clasped my hand, his eyes brimming with sorrow. He declared firmly, "You've been careful and considerate, I know your heart is for my good. But this matter cannot simply be swept under the rug. Once Yan Ning's child is born, I will bring it to you. The family registry shall record it under your name. One child born, one repaid. Twins born, twins repaid." Yan Ning's lips turned deathly pale, and she seemed on the verge of fainting. Her loyal maid, who had helped procure the secret fertility formula, rushed forward and steadied her. Tears streaming down her face, she cried out, "Madam, things have come to this. You must tell your husband the truth. What pulsing joy! What twins! It's all a lie. You are utterly incapable of bearing children." Though Yan Ning was already swaying on the verge of collapse, she still managed to push the maid away fiercely. "What nonsense are you spouting? How could I be incapable of bearing children? The divine physician has examined me, it's as certain as anything. He said they were twin male fetuses. I didn't fabricate anything, my lord. I didn't fabricate anything." The maid fell silent, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing incessantly. Yan Ning's rage boiled over. She drew the sword from the wall, ready to kill. Shen Yuqing's face darkened. He seemed poised to kick her, but instead stepped forward to restrain her. "Let her speak. Yan Ning, at this point, you still want to silence her?" When the maid raised her head again, tears streamed down her face, yet her words were clear and precise. "My lord, the lady was only diagnosed with pregnancy a fortnight ago. How could she possibly give birth to twins, let alone male children? This servant heard the divine physician and the lady discussing it with her own ears. The lady will never conceive in this lifetime. She can only alter her pulse with medicine and resort to surrogacy. If Madame Song becomes pregnant in the future, she must be killed and her child taken. If she does not, an infant will be brought in from outside, it makes no difference. But since my lord has resolved to take the mistress's child, this servant's conscience cannot bear it. I cannot watch Madame Song suffer harm, nor witness the separation of another's flesh and blood. She was Yan Ning's dowry attendant, loyal since childhood, devoted solely to Yan Ning's welfare. Only earlier today, she had been replaced by a disguised secret guard. Shen Yuqing consulted 5 or 6 more renowned physicians, all confirming her diagnosis. Yan Ning was infertile, the so-called pregnancy pulse was merely a falsehood created by medicine. It was the very secret fertility concoction she had brewed daily, treasuring every drop like precious pearls. The usually refined Shen Yuqing, upon realizing she might be separated from me in life and death once more, and possibly forced to raise another family's foundling, was seized by genuine fury. Without a word, she had Yan Ning bound and sent away in a carriage to the southern prince's residence. When the Prince of Nan lifted the curtain, Yan Ning stared with wide, vacant eyes, babbling incoherently in a foolish grin, utterly deranged. A divorce decree, written and sealed by Shen Yuqing, lay on her lap. He intended to divorce his wife. A penniless scholar who'd languished for 5 years in the imperial examinations, now daring to cast aside a princess of the royal house. Yet everything that had transpired at the Shen residence had long since spread through the streets and alleys, carried by the renowned physicians and secret guards who came and went from the mansion. The Prince of Nan, furious and flustered, could only swallow this bitter pill. That night, only Shen Yuqing and I remained as masters in the Shen residence. He drank himself into a stupor, clinging to my legs and weeping like a stray dog. His words repeated endlessly, "I'm sorry, forgive me." In years past, I would have struck him awake first, then wiped his tears clean. Now, I only poured him more wine. The wine jug in my hand felt heavy, my mind growing hazy. Both the secret guards and that bastard son claimed the southern prince's residence appeared spotless. No ledgers or documents. No forbidden artifacts. That evidence, I suspect, is all in Shen Yuqing's hands. Only he knows where it's hidden. That's how the close ties between the southern prince's mansion and the Shen household were forged. Where could Shen Yuqing have hidden it all? Shen Yuqing called my name several times before I snapped back to reality. His eyes red, he stared at me and suddenly said, "Anyang, you didn't come back to mend things with me. You hate me to the bone. You came back to kill me, didn't you?" My expression remained unchanged as I merely smiled. "My lord, you're drunk. You must have had a nightmare. I lost my parents. Besides you, my lord, who else could I rely on? Even if we were apart, it was all due to others' meddling. How could you possibly blame you, my lord?" Shen Yuqing, buoyed by these few light-hearted words of encouragement, immediately perked up. "You're right. It was just a nightmare. Ever since you returned, Anyang, I keep dreaming of you perishing in flames. In dreams without fire, you sit so high and distant, I can't even make out your face. Dreams don't count. I did nothing wrong back then. It was Yan Ning, she deceived me, she stood between us." He claimed he never wanted a divorce. Yan Ning stole his seal and forged his signature. The Jiangnan bureaucracy was the southern prince's private domain. Forget filing divorce papers, they could handle even grander, more heinous schemes for the southern prince. By the time Shen Yuqing realized, it was already too late to turn back. I was growing impatient. What Shen Yuqing said might be true, might be false. But what did it matter to me? I once vowed to live and die with him, to wander the world together, never seeking fame or power. He chose the wealth and prestige of the prince's mansion, then covered his ears and closed his eyes. Pretending everything was someone else's fault. Pretending he never tacitly accepted the suffering I endured. pretending he never aided and abetted the tyrant. The children who, like us back then, endured hunger during the famine. Now they too must tighten their belts, saving every grain of rice for their own children. Shen Yuqing once aspired to slay the dragon. Now, he is merely a lowly minion at the dragon's side. No matter how many times he laments the past, how many times he recounts old affection, it won't change this reality. But I remain. I still seek vengeance for the dead. I still watch the dragon's every move. I still search for my sword. Shen Yuqing stumbled to his feet, shoving books and vases off the shelf, then kicking the incense burner by the desk. The mechanism creaked. After half a month of searching his study, I finally found the secret chamber where he stored his most precious treasures. What met my eyes, however, was a phoenix crown and bridal robes. A dazzlingly splendid wedding gown, shimmering with myriad hues. No matter how they embroidered, none could match your skill. Shen Yuqing said plaintively, "Anyang, I wanted to give you the very best. I swore to protect you forever, to shield you from suffering. Am I useless?" I stared fixedly at the wedding gown. Sun and moon pearls, blooming flowers, phoenixes and mandarin ducks, auspicious clouds and mountains. Suddenly, a drunken smile blossomed. How could that be? "My lord, you have already given me the best." In the corner of the secret chamber, neatly stacked, lay the ledgers, letters, and correspondence of the southern prince's mansion. The wedding was set for 3 days hence. The last garrison would arrive precisely 3 days later. Now I was the sole mistress of the Shen household. Whoever saw me wore a smile and spoke sweet words. Yet I remained unmoved by their flattery. The palace dwellers are shrewd, 100-fold, 1,000-fold more so than the Shen household servants. Yet when Shui Qing and I first entered the imperial palace, we suffered many hidden setbacks, stumbled countless times. It is precisely they who constantly remind me, never forget who I am, never forget what I wish to achieve. They remind me not to become like the southern prince or Shen Yuqing. Shui Qing was waiting on the ship, his heart burning with impatience. The jealousy he spilled could have fed dumplings to every household in the capital. To avoid alerting the enemy, that night I memorized every ledger and document while Shen Yuqing slept off his drunkenness. I silently transcribed them and had the secret guards carry them away. I possess a photographic memory. Back in the embroidery workshop, the elder sister took me in precisely because I could memorize embroidery patterns with frightening speed. She would often pat my head and sigh, saying that if women could take the imperial examinations and become officials, I'd be a top scholar, material for a prime minister. Why must I burn myself out, just to prop up Shen Yuqing's climb to power? Back then, I was powerless. But who can say what the future holds? Having just ascended the throne, he had too few capable men at his disposal. Losing any one of them would pain him deeply. Shen Yuqing lifted his head, his gaze fixed intently on the imperial sword in Shui Chang's hand. Until I blocked his view and reached for the sword myself. Shui Chang asked doubtfully, "Anyang?" I shook my head. Life holds no distinction between high and low, but he is unworthy. Had he charged into the capital with reckless courage, beating the drum of petition for the people of Jiangnan, stepping before the emperor's gate, had he endured hardships, never abandoning his lofty ambitions, studying day and night until his name was inscribed on the golden list, if he had lived cautiously, seeking only to survive, leaving Jiangnan behind, spending his days in mediocrity, yet never aligning himself with the southern prince's mansion, he could have taken this sword. But he did none of these things. He is unworthy of this sword. I'll go. I swung onto my horse, my wedding gown fluttering wildly. As I spurred away, the black-armored cavalry roared like thunderclouds. I was but a tiny spark at their forefront. Shen Yuqing was left far behind. I scarcely gave him a thought. The southern prince fought desperately, his mansion fortified like an iron barrel. Guards hauled out heavy siege crossbows, their poisoned arrows drenched in flaming oil. Yet someone left us an open door. As my men charged through, the southern prince clutched his bastard son, preparing to flee through a secret passage. Faced with swords and axes, the prince first threw a tantrum, rolling on the ground and screaming that Shen Yuqing had murdered elders and unjustly executed loyal subjects. I had my men produce the evidence seized from the Shen residence, along with Shen Yuqing's confession. Item by item, we presented it to him, word by word, we read it aloud for all to hear. Seeing his cause lost, the southern prince could no longer smear Shen Yuqing. He shoved his beloved son aside and flatly denied, "This is not my son. He deceived me. He is the son of a courtesan from the Spring Breeze Pavilion, an impostor, a penniless upstart come to milk us dry. He schemed relentlessly, desperate to preserve a sliver of his bloodline, hoping one day to make a comeback." The bastard son remained unflustered, peeling a mask from his face. Prince Jiangnan bowed his hands and said, "Your Highness speaks with perfect accuracy. I am indeed not your blood relative. My mother was indeed a courtesan at Spring Breeze Pavilion, though not the top-ranked one. She grew old and faded. During the famine year, she caught the plague. They dragged her out of the pavilion and burned her alive. The memory of her tears my heart apart. Today, I inadvertently left a few doors open for His Majesty's men. Your Highness, you treat me as your own son. Surely you cannot blame me? He was that master of disguise, the secret guard. Had he not disguised himself as an important figure, he might have been exposed by acquaintances. I saw he could single-handedly slaughter his way through the southern prince's mansion. The southern prince's eyes bulged, unable even to stand. He slumped to the ground like a wrinkled old dog. With both witness and evidence present, I raised the imperial sword to cleave his head. My strength was insufficient. In my entire life, I'd only ever held a needle for embroidery. Yet one by one, formless hands, bearing father's warmth, mother's softness, a child's innocence, an old farmer's roughness, a courtesan's fragrance, joined mine to bring the blade down. Blood spattered, a few drops landing on my cheek. It too was red, it too was warm. The blood of the southern prince at the height of his power was no different from that of every soul he had destroyed. The southern prince was dead. Shen Yuqing spared no thought for exterminating his entire clan. Yan Ning had her title of princess stripped and was sent to a royal temple for seclusion. Shen Yuqing, however, was to die. He refused any pleas for mercy. At the end of his confession, he wrote that he had wasted years studying the classics, yet had plunged headlong into evil. He deserved his punishment. He only dreaded facing his departed relatives and friends. He returned to the alley he had once fled, having lost all conscience. He lay in the old courtyard of my family home, before my parents' graves. Clutching a withered branch of apricot blossoms, he took poison and ended his life. I burned paper offerings for him and my parents, but only for him did I plead with my parents. If they meet in the underworld, I asked them not to blame him too harshly. Shen Yuqing waited at the courtyard gate. We were to return to the capital. From the capital to Jiangnan, sailing downstream, 1,000 miles in a day. Returning to the capital, however, meant against the current. The boat moved slowly, we must depart early. Spring in Jiangnan was finally coming to an end. The end.